Nandini from OpenAI, if you can join us. Hi. Sandini is from the policy team of OpenAI. Thanks, Sam. I hope you have the bandwidth to take more questions.
For sure.
So I just want to start. I want to refer to this one interview we did with you when you were in YC. And you specifically called the big tech as being hypercaps. That was something that you came up during the interview. A lot of people think OpenAI is as powerful or more than big tech today.
I don't think anyone really. That's nice of you to say. I don't think anyone really
I'll just come to the
that.
question.
All right.
And that's because when you propose to regulate the industry, that's also because you want to be part of writing that regulation, which makes it look like that, the smaller startups and the companies which are sort of still burgeoning may not have a chance to ever become as big.
So, to be very clear, we've explicitly said there should be no regulation on smaller companies on the current open source models, that it's important to let that flourish. The only regulation we've called for is on people ourselves or bigger.
Which include? Google.
Yeah, it'd be us and Google right now, I think.
Okay.
But really just us. I think we're clearly in the lead. If it only were focused on us right now, that'd be fine. I totally get why people are skeptical of hearing someone running one of the companies in the industry call for regulation, but the governments haven't been, and we think this is important, so we have a moral duty to do it. And it's totally reasonable to ask that question, but we feel strongly about doing it.
Has there been any progress at all from?
Yeah, a lot, actually. It's been quite a good response. We've met with heads of state in many, many countries on this trip, and I have been really pleasantly surprised every single time about the nuance of not slowing down, balancing not slowing down innovation, all the positive economic benefits, everything else, and realizing that if this keeps going, it can get somewhere that does require global action. Do you have anything to add?
You want to add to that?
I think the only thing that I'll add in terms of regulation, and I think something that we've called for, is really setting standards and in a way guiding companies as to what we should be building. Because we know these technologies will impact the world and it needs to be a two-way conversation. So it really has been about kickstarting that conversation to kind of have it be a two-way street. So we're not deciding for the entire world how these technologies impact everyone.
No, I think the concern, Sam, is because usually if you've seen it for the past 15 years, regulation always follows, technology. This is the first instance where you are proposing to regulate before it's sort of, it is big, but, the percentage of people who've used ChatGPT or any of the LLM models will be very small right now. Does that dissuade smaller companies? And I think we'll open it up if you have an answer to that, then to the audience.
Yeah, again, we are explicitly saying there should not be regulation for smaller companies. I think that's important. There's got to be enough nuance in the conversation where it can't just be like, either you're a CEO that says regulation is bad, and then you are responsible for your industry being bad, or you say regulation is good, and then you're trying to do regulatory capture. If that's it, then kind of what do we want? I think what we need is companies to say what they actually believe in, not decide it. That's certainly up to the governments, but to be able to give input. In our case, we think for very powerful models that are much more powerful than what we have today, we do need global regulatory something. And if the world decides that's not what they want, that's fine. But there's nothing we've said, and in fact, we've explicitly said the opposite about anything on smaller companies.
Okay. Do you want to? There are no questions for you here.
Great.
Just in case.
Let's do it.
Yeah, these are some of the people who had sent in questions. So if we have the mic, Gaurav, Unacademy, and maybe you can just introduce yourselves as well.
So, hi, this is Gaurav from Unacademy. 5 years ago, you wrote a blog post which said that the next opportunity that you should pick should make everything else you have done look like a footnote. Now you spoke about fusion today, etc. And there are some clear big opportunities. But let's say for entrepreneurs starting out or starting their next company or something like that, and apart from the market cap or the potential or the USP, what are some traits that do you think on day one say that this opportunity can be super big and can make everything else that you have done look like a footnote?
I mean, I think this is the most exciting time to start a company since the dawn of the internet. I think this is going to be bigger than mobile. It might turn out to be bigger than the internet. I hope it does, but it's at least that big. And that means that anything you do can be huge. It's been, I think, hard to figure out what to work on, these last 10 years, because there has not been a big new technology trend that's going to shake the ground. And now we have one. So, I would definitely do something in AI, but what to do, I'd pick what you like, what you believe in, make sure that the business idea has some basic defensibility to it, but it's open season, and this is a tremendously exciting time.
I want to add to that. Just put on your investor hat. Is there too much of frenzy around AI? You're always critical of venture capitalists.
There is too much of a frenzy around AI in the short term. So it's wildly overhyped in the short term. People saying there's crazy stuff happening in Silicon Valley right now. But I think it's still probably underhyped in the long term. If we really do, we might be wrong. We might hit a wall anytime. But if we really do make the progress that we think we're going to make, and we have this magical system that can just do anything you ask, no one knows how to think about that. No one knows how to value that, but whatever they're thinking is too low. So it's, short-term underhyped, long-term, short-term overhyped, long-term underhyped. What do you think?
I think I definitely agree with that. I think one thing that I'd also add with AI, something that's really special now is the way it can reach millions of people across the world. Something we've seen in India is there's so much demand for things like education, and there's just not enough people who can often act as teachers, act as doctors, act as lawyers. With things like AI, all of that will slowly become more and more possible. So that's a very exciting future, and the potential is just very large there.
Yeah, to add something to that, I think we were talking earlier about what's going to happen to the jobs, but maybe the problem is we don't have nearly enough people to do all of the jobs that we want. We're in this massive crunch, and if you can make way more job doing ability available, the world would consume 100 times, 1,000 times more. I think we may really see that.
So, more questions. Rajan?
Hi, Sam Rajan, here from Peak 15 Partners.
Still yesterday was Sequoia Capital.
Peak 15.
I got some questions for you.
Yeah, I know. You're on the hot seat today, not me. Sam, can you just going to startups? As you know, we've got a very vibrant startup ecosystem in India. Specifically focused on AI, are there spaces where you see, let's say, a startup from India building, you can build on the models, be it ChatGPT and many others. But if you want to build foundational models, how should we think about that? Where is it that a team from India, 3 super smart engineers with, not 100 million, but let's say 10 million, could actually build something truly substantial?
Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models. You shouldn't try, and it's your job to try anyway. And I believe both of those things. I think it is pretty hopeless, but.
This is Ajay Chaudhary, and I founded HCL. The question I want to ask is, Ray Kurzweil and others have been talking about, achieving singularity in, let's say, year 2045, with the kind of exponential growth that your products are going to do. Is it going to be a much earlier than 2045, and what's your estimate?
Sandhini, you want to go first?
I can take that question maybe for Sam. So I'd say timelines, that's something we discuss a lot at OpenAI. Different people tend to have different timelines for when they think that'll happen. I think the thing that you're mentioning around singularity though, and some of these sort of more existential risks and existential opportunities even perhaps, where I think right now where we are and where we really need to think about is how do we really measure it? How do we really evaluate it? So we're in a place where we don't even have that right now. So I think that's the starting point when we can maybe start to get some more structure around these abstract ideas. But in terms of timelines, people can have their own sort of estimates, and that can really vary a lot.
I think we're getting close enough that the definition of the term really matters a lot, and people do have very different definitions. What I would say is we need to plan for a world in which 10 years from now, we have something that is like a very meaningful contribution to all of the cognitive ability of human civilization. Maybe as much, maybe more, maybe less, but an important fraction. And, you know, singularity or not, that is a very different world.
Kunal. Yeah. Mike? Oh,
Hi.
Can I?
sorry, okay, Prasoon, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Prasoon. I'm a creative professional. I was just thinking while you were talking, and I think a lot of new thoughts coming to my head. One of the questions I have is that, you know, there is something called creative satisfaction to an individual with the creation, the tactile sense of it. And if the distance and degree of separation starts increasing and the tool becomes so overpowering that it takes away the belonging to the product, it can happen to any job actually, that the ones who is doing the job sees himself or herself very distanced from it completely, and it almost the creation creating itself. So what happens to this individual satisfaction which is related to jobs or creation or any of these things? Would it become self-sufficient in its own way, and then the tool overpowers you?
I think what happens when you give people better tools is they do better things. They do more impressive things. The floor lifts up, the expectations lift up, and if I feel very lucky and like very grateful to all of humanity. All of humanity that's come before me, everyone's built the things that I use, but I would not be able to do what I do, and neither would anybody else in this room, without a gigantic tech tree of technology and better tools. But you know, without the transistor, without the operating systems that people figure out how to do, without all of the work that enabled for the next step, without airplanes that let me come here and talk to you, none of this would happen. And so we build better and better tools that abstract more and more, but we still find quite a lot of fulfillment, and we operate at higher and higher levels. And I think that's just going to keep going. I think human creativity, the desire for status, fulfillment from work, wanting to like contribute useful things back to the world so other people someday get to build on our stuff, like that's not going anywhere. The sort of expectations are just going to go up.
I think Kunal had raised his
Sam, two-part questions. You can choose to answer one or both. What have you, after doing AI for so long, what have you learned about humans? And what do you think is your understanding of humans after doing AI? And if you could be in trenches and build 4 more companies, what would these companies look like?
What have you learned about humans, so I can think about it for longer?
Sorry, Sam?
Oh.
Yeah,
no, I can go first.
That's the amount of time.
Man. So one is I grew up implicitly thinking that intelligence was this like really special human thing and kind of somewhat magical. And I now think that it's sort of a fundamental property of matter. And that's definitely a change to my worldview. I think kind of like the history of scientific discovery is that humans are less and less at the center. You know, we used to think that like sun rotated around us, and then maybe at least we were, if not that, we were like going to be the center of the galaxy, and there wasn't this big universe, and then multiverse like really is kind of weird and depressing. And if intelligence is special, like again, we're just like further and further away from like main character energy. But that's all right. That's sort of like a nice thing to realize, actually. I feel like I have learned something deep, but I'm having a hard time putting it into words. But it's like something about it, even if like humans aren't special in terms of intelligence, we are incredibly important. You know, I won't have the consciousness debate here, but like, I think there's something strange and very important going on with humans, and I really deeply hope we preserve all of that. The second part was like 4 other companies I would start. I think I would just like pick the verticals that I felt I knew the best and think about how AI could revolutionize them. So maybe the meta answer is I should be like thinking about how you use AI to make a better, faster AI company.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can we get people from the back? Yeah, VC.
I've got many questions. I didn't want to take over from the incredibly handsome guy in the room, but many questions. One is, I really liked what you said in Abu Dhabi. I've been reading about your various speeches around the world. That seemed the most important, about it being regulated like atomic energy. So could you explain that more? Because that seems extremely important to regulate. Harare has been making negative remarks or cautions about AI. Mainly what I've understood, he says, think of AI in the worst politician that you have in mind. He obviously meant, without naming, the typical warring dictators. The next question is, are you able to share what you had a conversation with the Prime Minister? And coming to human aspects, I had the great opportunity of also meeting Kurzweil at Google. And the most incredible thing he said, and it stayed with me, please explain that. I met him 8 years ago, and even then he said, we're able, through AI, to make classical music equal or better than the greatest masters. The frontier will be when we make AI or robots capable of love. He was very serious about this. And I haven't read much about this, as if it was his own personal passion. Has this aspect of humanity, which I hope competes with intelligence as an aspect of man, progressed? That AI will make something like a robot capable of greater love than man and dog, man and wife, father and son. Is that progressing?
So on the IAEA, yeah, basically we think, and we're not sure if this is the best answer, we're kind of contributing one idea of many good ones to the global conversation. In the same way that we say, you know, nuclear materials provide some real danger, some real benefits, but they affect all of us, they affect the globe. Let's have a system in place so that we can audit people who are doing it, we can license it, we can have safety tests you have to pass as you're training these systems before you deploy them. There's visibility for regulators. I think that's an important idea. We have been very pleasantly surprised by how much enthusiasm there is for it from around the world. And, you know, maybe someone has a better idea, which would be great. I had dinner with Harari a couple of nights ago. We talked about this in Tel Aviv. I do think there's a lot of like very sci-fi concerns that are pretty far out there and probably will turn out to be quite wrong. But this idea of misuse by a dictator using it to oppress people is a very scary thing, and that's not super far away. So I think we need to, and we spend a lot of time at OpenAI thinking about this, I think we need to build these systems in a way to address that risk. And I think it's going to be a very complicated global geopolitical challenge. The Prime Minister, we're going to see tomorrow. Schedules got shifted around, but really looking forward to doing that. And love, I hope that we don't all fall in love with robots. That would be deeply depressing. What I hope happens is we are all the best versions of ourselves. We all can like figure out how to be better. These systems can like help us as coaches, as maybe like therapists in the future, as sort of like guides and assistants, and make us more present for each other and treat each other better. And I really believe that can happen. But the like all fall in love with the robot thing, I'm okay with the good classical music. I don't really want that future personally. What do you think?
I think on that, I'd also say it fundamentally gets to some questions about like what you believe AI can and can't do. I think it's still a debate whether AI models can feel emotions either now or ever. So definitely not settled. Will again play into how we even measure things like that. So definitely an ongoing conversation right now.
Yeah, Alessandro?
Yeah. Sam, Alessandro from SDA Bocconi School of Management, the Asia Center. Education. So you talked about education, and indeed it is already it's helping a lot. But I'm looking at it from the other side. You said that it will generate a lot of new jobs. We will all be more productive and gather different jobs under ourselves. So what do you think are the skills that we should be teaching for the future managers to nicely manage this GAI in order, like right now we are teaching about leadership, about strategy. Would it be something like psychology, design thinking, or a mix of everything?
Santini probably has a better answer on this one than me.
I'll just add to that. There has been a lot of concern raised about ChatGPT becoming like a therapist for a lot of people. And while it is fine at a very basic level, there have been questions about and concerns about.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'll add to that, and then I'll take that question as well, is we actually also in the democratic call for AI inputs have asked that as a question, like should AI models offer emotional support or like psychological help to humans? I think that's an open space and society needs to decide what role AI will play. But I think to that question, I think many of the skills you mentioned, why they're unique is because I think they play into this fundamental aspect of like people skills, EQ, and like long-term planning and long-term strategy. These are three things that I'd say right now AI models, unclear where the growth is and unclear how and when they're going to get there. So those three things I think are like perhaps the key things to focus on right now. These aspects which feel fundamentally human because they rely on these things around EQ, human connection, sort of understanding people. So those areas might be some good areas to focus on.
Yeah, just one question to Sam. I think in April sometime, you had said that OpenAI would start training GPT-5, but you stalled it because of concerns raised by Elon Musk and others.
No.
And it's been a few months, so.
No, I didn't say we were going to start training GPT-5, and I didn't say anything in response to Elon. There was a letter that some people signed. We didn't. People asked us, "Are you currently training GPT-5?" And we said, "No, we're not current." Again, per my earlier statement, we just kind of say what we're doing. We're not training it, so we said we weren't. That's all.
But what's your
But
stand?
it's not like we were started and then that letter came out and we stopped.
But is it happening anytime soon? Training of.
We have a lot of work to do before we're ready to go start that model. Like these things take a long time. You can see how long it took us between GPT-3 and GPT-4. This is like, it's not like you just like push a button and say, okay, today we launched GPT-5. It takes hundreds of people and a lot of research that happens on somewhat unpredictable timelines. So we're working on the new ideas that we think we need for it, but we're certainly not close to ready to start.
And what's your stand on Elon and a bunch of others writing letters, wanting to stop any sort of progress to be made on AI?
I think a better framework is external audits, red teaming, safety tests. When we finished GPT-4, it took us more than 6 months until we were ready to release it. We did, your team did a lot of work on it, so did many other teams, to get ready to be confident that we could put something out that was safe. But 6 months would not have been a magic number, and we weren't going to put it out until we were ready. And this was a lot of internal work, external work. Future systems may take longer, they may take less long. What I think matters is a set of safety standards and a process to ensure compliance with those. Because otherwise, like, you stop for 6 months and then how do you know if you made enough safety progress?
But you're not committing to a date.
To a what?
To a date.
For the next?
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you. Like it's research doesn't like work on a calendar.
We'll get more questions in. Okay, I think. Yeah, okay.
I'm Raju Kanoria. I'm a businessman. My question to you is that how do you make ethical choices when it comes to using AI? And one example is obviously in case you're involved in an accident in a self-driving car or in a situation which can cause an accident, or for that matter, what you mentioned about medical science, that, you know, in the use of medical science, you can come up with different ideas on how to deal with a disease. But when it comes to ethical choices, how do you think AI will play out in the future?
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first? All right. I think the main thing that I would say, we could talk about any of those specific examples, but the main thing I would say is those aren't OpenAI's decisions to make. We really want to figure out a way that we engage with society and that we democratize the decision making on these trade-offs. So the projects we've launched recently, the funding that we've provided, it's to figure out a way to get the global value system and the moral preferences of people to decide what these systems do. We could go off and make those, and it's like very interesting to think about them, and we have our own opinions, but it shouldn't be like up to OpenAI to decide. And one of the things that I think is so cool about this technology that's different from anything that's come before is this is a technology that can actually learn the collective preferences of the world for decisions like that.
Should we take a few more questions, Sam? Yeah?
I have the mic here. Shall I go?
Yeah, Swati.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Swati. I'm the co-founder of Cash Karo. We are in the performance marketing space. Firstly, thank you so much, Sam, for sharing everything so generously and being so transparent about everything. I would personally love to know a little bit more about the company culture you've built as an entrepreneur at OpenAI, because it's not just you who's inspired, it's your entire team that is building, creating something that doesn't exist today. So how did you inspire others as well in your team?
You should take that one. That's hard for me to.
Yeah, I think I can answer something about the company culture. What you're seeing right now here on the transparency around sort of setting this vision and being very open at the company, that's something we actually have at OpenAI. Something that's really good about the company is how all teams can come together and really work together on big ideas together. That requires collaboration, that requires sharing ideas, that requires not being territorial about work and kind of collaborating in this manner. I think that's what the company is really good at, and that's something that I think Sam and like others have sort of set from the get-go. I think something else that's really good about the company is like no idea is a bad idea. So like no matter how crazy your idea might be, or like how sort of far out or how sort of like ridiculous it may sound in the beginning, people always hear you out, people always engage. So this sort of appetite for always having a discussion is also something that's really good about the company.
The two other things I was thinking about, we really care about talent density. So I think a lot of companies have talented people, but if you have like even a few mediocre people mixed in through there, they kind of like act like the neutron absorbers and stuff just goes wrong. So we really try to have like extreme talent density. And the trade-off of that is we don't have that many people relative to what we do. And so we really try to be focused. Like GPT-4 was a whole company effort. We could not have gone and done 3 other things at the same time.
Yeah, somewhere there.
Here.
Okay.
So I'm Rohit. I work for Government of India. I'm Secretary to Government of India, and we like assistance. So I asked ChatGPT at 5 p.m. that I'm meeting Sam, what should I ask him? And you know, the responses that I got were so easy, so I think the hypothesis that it is biased is totally confirmed. But jokes apart, there are concerns about energy consumption in large language models. And just like the crypto thing, do you think for quick adoption in public spaces like the Indian government, the lightweight AI, is that the way forward? Of course, there is the issues on accuracy, and so What are your views on lightweight AI? And since you also talked about nuclear fusion, I think the energy consumption is at the back of your mind for LLMs.
Yeah, I think this energy conversation about LLMs has become a real sideshow. These current models are just not consuming a material amount of energy compared to anything else. I don't understand why it's become such a topic of debate. I think it is important in the long term. If we really keep scaling these models up, they will start to consume lots of energy, but we'll need to be on fusion or renewables or something like that anyway by that point, just to get enough energy. So I don't know how this has become such a meme, but I don't think it is a material factor. I think you can certainly use small models for some tasks, but on the whole, I think you kind of want to use the best intelligence you can unless there's a good reason not to. And we always want to make AI way cheaper and way more available and way smarter, and Fusion will certainly help us do that. So that's I think why we're excited about it.
We have another 10 minutes. Treya from Axel. Okay. Okay.
Sorry to come in again. It's a conversation, so I took the liberty. You said about AI not wanting to be human or not competing with human, perhaps. That's the hint I got. Not to take over. But just like AI will take over jobs, because AI will do it better than, say, a truck driver. So similarly, when you say human, the first thing we know about humans is it's human to make mistakes. Human being he errs. To err is human. So all we have to do is to make AI human, all the qualities of a conversation, but it does not err. So we have always told our beloved, mother, wife, daughter, I love you. But, just this one aspect of you, it really riles me. It's difficult to believe that everybody in the room hasn't said that to a beloved. So this AI robot will displace your most beloved person by having a much better conversation with you without error. And what you find irksome about the lover, you can program it to not make that mistake, and therefore you will get the perfect lover.
Do you want that?
No. It's in technology, I'm a neophyte. I haven't been the first mover. I'm a late follower. So that's how it'll go.
Look, first of all, I think this question of whether AI is a tool or a creature is something that really confuses people. And it confused me for a while too. But I now think we are very much building a tool and not a creature. And I'm very happy about that. And I think we should and will continue in that direction. On the question of mistakes and errors, I believe that creativity and certainly the creation of new knowledge is very difficult / maybe impossible without the ability to make errors and come up with bad ideas. And so if you made a system that was certain to never say something that it wasn't absolutely sure was a fact, I think you would lose some creativity in that process. And I think one of the reasons that people don't like ChatGPT is because it hallucinates and makes stuff up. But one of the reasons they do like it is because it can be creative. And what we want is a system that can be creative when you want, which means, sometimes being wrong or saying something you're not sure about or experimenting with a new idea. And then when you want accuracy, you get accuracy. So I think there's something there. If people want and some people clearly do, if people want to chat with the perfect companionship bot that never upsets you and doesn't do that one thing that irks you, you can have that. And I think it'll be deeply unfulfilling and a sort of hard thing to feel love for. I think there's like something about watching someone screw up and grow and, you know, like express their imperfections that's the very deep heart of love as I understand it. And I think like humans care about other humans and humans care about what other humans do in a very deep way. So that, you know, that like perfect lover chatbot doesn't sound so compelling to me. Want to add anything? All right.
Yeah.
Sam. Yeah. Should I?
Hi, Sam.
Okay, I just wanted someone at the back because they tend to get ignored.
All right, Sam, hi. This is Manish Ghailod. I'm the CTO.
Can you just be a bit louder?
Oh, this is Manish Ghailod. I'm the CTO of TCW. We're an asset manager in LA. So my question is, we are fully expecting ChatGPT to have a monumental impact in the composition of organizations. So as we start planning for the future, as we start working towards a target state organization, and you can use technology as an example, how best do we create a target state organization so we have a soft landing?
So we have what?
A soft landing.
Oh. I think just like a rapid adoption of the tools and a tight feedback loop for what to do with them. It's too hard to predict the future. We say this at OpenAI all the time. It's too hard to predict the future. A tight feedback loop is how we manage through it. And we just try something, we observe, we correct, and do that again and again and again. And I think the world is going to reward adaptability and speed and resilience like more than ever before because the rate of change will be so fast.
Sam, great to hear your views about AI. I'm curious to hear your views about energy as well. So, per what the models suggest, the energy consumption and reliance on fossil fuels as of 20 years ago and today is largely the same. And we have this great revolution in AI, which will, hopefully revolutionize a lot of things. But I'm curious to hear your views on Helion and your view on what the next ChatGPT for quote-unquote energy would be.
I don't know quite what ChatGPT for energy means, but I think if we get fusion to work and number one, we can have the cost of it be like less than 1/10 of current energy. And number two, we can manufacture enough generators for like the whole planet in 10 years, then that's great. Now, of course, if you drop the price that much, the demand will go up, I don't know how much, but a lot. So we'll have to make even more, but we'll figure that out as we go. And if we can just start with replacing all baseload, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm curious, what is your biggest fear? If you yourself said it could either go completely big or go wrong, what is your biggest fear about AI?
I would like to hear Sandini's answer.
So honestly, my biggest answer right now, and I'll share in the 5-year time span, it is the economic displacement question. And I know my views here might differ from like many people at the company. I think the economic displacement question, for example, with the Industrial Revolution, when that happened, long term, it was great for the world, great for society, a lot of progress. But the immediate 50 years after the aftermath were really painful. So I think that's what we need to figure out. How do we manage this transition? How do we make it least painful for society? I think in order to do that, there's a lot of work that like governments, people have cut out for themselves. So I think that's what I'd say in the now is one of my biggest fears and worries. Sam?
I have a lot. I guess the thing that I lose the most sleep over is that we already have done something really bad. I don't think we have, but the hypothetical that we, by launching ChatGPT into the world, shot the industry out of a railgun, and we now don't get to have much impact anymore. And there's going to be an acceleration towards making these systems, which again, I think will be used for tremendous good, and I think we're going to address all the problems. But maybe there's something in there that was really hard and complicated in a way we didn't understand, and we've now already kicked this off.
Yeah.
Srivatsa Krishna from the Indian Administrative Service. Great to see you again, Sam. The question I have, I think the smartest move you've done is to go to the regulators and say, regulate us. That's like saying, ask the sun to stop shining. because you're way ahead. And the audit you talk about of every node, of every server, of every network will require so much of energy, it's impossible for any regulator in the world to do. Point number one. Point number two, you often cite the IAEA. Most of the UN bodies are past their expiry date. If the UN had worked, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. IAEA, many regard, is not a success, but actually a failure, because collective action among nations is very, very hard to bring about. So how did you think of this very smart move to get ahead of government? Because government always, almost always, regulates the lowest common denominator. It is not designed to do nuance. Thank you.
That's a very cynical take, and I really hope you're wrong. And surely the smartest thing we've done is like create magical intelligence in a computer, like rather than like go to Congress and ask for regulation. I think they're like, I hope, incomparable in terms of the impact or the impressiveness of them. But I totally disagree. I think the world can come together on important things. I think the UN is in bad shape for sure. I think IAEA is deeply imperfect. Let's go do something better, but those are the best analogies we have. And to say like, oh, the governments are just hopeless, so call for regulation is some sort of 4D chess move, it's just like not how we think. This is an existential risk. There's many ways to solve it. If the governments don't get their act together, we will try our hardest to get the companies to cooperate. But we can't control what every company does, and we'd at least like to ask for like the dream world. And if we can't have that, we'll get the companies that want to play ball together and do our best.
Hi.
We can take maybe a couple of more questions.
Hi. Sam, I heard Elon Musk talk about the origin of OpenAI and his role in it. And the argument he was making when he was talking about Microsoft's investment in OpenAI seemed to give the impression that he had an economic claim upon OpenAI of some sort, or that he was heading towards that. Is that completely off the charts?
Yeah, I don't really want to get into like an Elon food fight. I like the dude. I think he's like totally wrong about this stuff. He can sort of say whatever he wants, but I'm like proud of what we're doing, and I think we're going to make a positive contribution to the world, and I'll try to stay above all of that.
Hi. Hi, my name is Shrikant. I run an AI firm called Fractal. I read your the paper called Sparks of AGI, which was written by the Microsoft researchers in March, which is very interesting, and it already shows, GPT-4 already shows several clues that it's close to AGI. So my question to you is, what are some of the tests that you have internally to know that you're getting really close? Are there any tests, and can you share how you would test for that? And you already talked about the definitions and how AGI, there are several definitions, but what is the definition that you're working with, and what are some of the tests that you have to test that it is close? Yeah,
Great question. I think this is one of the most important, like rarely asked questions about what are the right evals for what an AGI would be. First of all, that was not our paper, and I don't think we're particularly close. I don't think GPT-4 is particularly close. For me, the fundamental thing that GPT-4 can't do at all that an AGI could do is go figure something out, go discover new knowledge, go learn how to solve a new problem it's never seen before, figure out that it needs to go do complicated planning, study some things in a particular order, build something, write some test code. And the tests that I'm interested in, the evals, are all around that ability. There's plenty of other things, you probably have different answers, but that's the one that for me would be like, all right, this is an AGI.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add to that is we've actually published pretty much every eval we ran on GPT-4. So they're there in the GPT-4 technical report and the system card. Some of the tests that Sam mentioned are currently more qualitative. So they're done by individual researchers running experiments on GPT-4. There's one under the ARC section that we've published, so should be possible to read about it as well.
Hi. Hey, Sam. Nitin Sharma, Antler. I have a question about AI with respect to Web3. You're also involved with WorldCoin. A while back, people were saying that AI is a force for centralization and Web3 will take it the other way. As someone involved on both sides, I'd love to get your take.
I think AI will be a force for decentralization in a very powerful way. I think whenever you can give people pretty democratic access to very powerful tools, it is a force for decentralization, and we're seeing this already with the API and with ChatGPT. So I also had a sort of like fear that AI was going to be a big force for centralization. I think without even like being explicit about this, my model was that like there was going to be one super intelligence in the sky that like, we better hope was good and liked us. And now what I think is it's much more like we all have like a bunch of systems that help us be more productive, and you use AI for one thing, I use it for another. You and I are both like way more capable than we were in the old world, but sort of still like doing our thing and amplifying our own will.
Just
Hey, Sam.
one last question. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Cavalier from Zepto. We're actually a YC and YC continuity company, so thank you for all of
Happy
the
to
work
hear.
you've done before OpenAI as well. You had a conversation recently with Patrick Collison, and within that, the two of you discussed the problem of not enough founders working on high risk, high reward, very capital intensive, and over a long period, those types of companies and those types of problems. You talked briefly about giving a grant to 100 the smartest people.
I'm
but
going to
anything
do it
else?
someday. I just need to get around to it. I think this is a really good idea.
Any other ideas in terms of how to solve for that?
I mean, I think there's like a lot of things one could do. And I think maybe the most important is just like I want to keep trying to deliver the message. I'm grateful to other people trying to deliver the message. Just talking about the importance of this and the feasibility of it, and that you actually can raise money and you can get people to work on it. And like, sure, they're going to like, it's a little bit harder to get started, and people like, it takes a long time and people get impatient. But like, it's the most fun thing to work on. And I think if we just can as a society, like keep reinforcing that message that it is hard but possible, and maybe less hard than an easy startup, I think that's the way to do it.
So we're going to have to wrap this up, but Sam, are you going to be around?
Yeah,
Will you be
I can stick
able
around
to?
for a little
Okay.
while.
So Sam's here. If you guys have more questions, you can come up to him. He's around for a bit. Yeah?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Andini. Andini from OpenAI, if you can join us. Sandini is from the policy team of OpenAI. Thanks, Sam. I hope you have the bandwidth to take more questions.